back to the People's Parish, a podcast about progressive Catholic news and ideas. I'm your host, John Noble, bringing you yet another late episode of the People's Parish. As some of my listeners may know, I am a graduate student. Finals just happened, and I am finally playing catch up with everything from finals and work and all those sorts of things. But we are back. We do have an episode for today, and we are going to be getting on a more regular schedule throughout the summer. So keep an eye out for some announcements around scheduling, around new processes. If you want to be interviewed or if you'd like someone else to be interviewed, we have some exciting stuff coming up in the next couple weeks. And one of those exciting things is this week's interview. An interview I'm very excited about with Felix Cepeda, who is an activist from New York City. Felix is doing some really cool work with Sanctuary, with immigrant rights movements, specifically being a prophetic voice and attempting to get the Catholic Church to live into a new model of immigrant solidarity. He's got some great ideas about ways the Catholic Church can do that. He talks about how his own spirituality influences that work, and he has some practical tips for you and for us on how we can better lean into solidarity with immigrants, specifically through the Sanctuary movement. So it's an interview I'm excited to bring you, so let's go ahead and kick it off. Hi, is this Felix?
Yeah, this is Felix. Nice to talk to you.
Yeah, hey, am I still catching you at a good time?
Yeah, this is great. I'm in Maine visiting my girlfriend's family, so it's quiet here.
Oh, great. Awesome. Yeah, so first tell me who you are, a little bit about yourself, some of your background. Where do you come from? Where are you going?
Well, my name is Felix Cepeda, and I'm a Catholic social justice activist. I was in the Jesuit seminary. I was a Jesuit brother for many years. And, my family, they're from the Dominican Republic, and I was born and raised in New York City. Spent half of my life here in the U.S. and the other half in the Dominican Republic. You know, and in the church, I learned about justice, so I've always tried to follow, the example of Jesus and St. Oscar Romero and Dorothy Day and, all these people who have tried to live the gospel values, and that's what I try to do, every day in society as a Catholic and also inside the church. I feel that even inside the church there is injustice, and there are things I'm very passionate about, like women's ordination, and that's one of the issues, one of the reasons I was asked to leave the Jesuit order. So some of the things I'm involved in.
Tell me a little bit about your entry into the Jesuits, your time with the Jesuits. You're being asked to leave the Jesuits that you mentioned there.
Well, I entered the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits in the Dominican Republic, and I was probably there for like 6-7 years. And it was a great time. I learned a lot about. I did the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius, which is an amazing experience. 30 days. I studied a lot, and so I learned about. More about the poor, and working, on behalf of justice. So it was a great experience. One of the issues that brought me, that brought me trouble inside is that this question about why do I get to choose if I want to be a brother or a priest, and then women don't have this opportunity, in the church, and so these questions just got me, into trouble. Especially because I was very public about it. This was before Pope Francis, Pope Benedict, and we know the church was a little, I think something positive with Pope Francis that, now he's saying it himself, that we should ask questions, and we should, debate each other and argue with love and respect, but that we should be open about our opinions. And so at that time, I feel the church was a little hard, for those of us who were voicing out publicly, what we felt, maybe needed to change in the church.
Tell me a little bit about the connections that you draw between the social justice work that you're doing in the world and the church reform that you're talking about that needs to happen here. Because I think sometimes in Catholic circles, some Catholic social justice groups say, well, that goes without questions of internal church reform. Or some internal church reform activists say, well, we don't need to worry about things like, war or poverty. Our main focus here is what's going on inside the church reform movement. Why are those things linked for you?
Yeah, I mean, for me that was hard too, because I was always a Catholic, more involved in things going on in society. So it was easy for me to criticize the government and criticize corporations and criticize. I never really looked inside my own institution. I was always busy, just criticizing, outside. But then, through just learning about call to action and the women's ordination movement and the women's ordination conference and all these groups that were also doing this work of looking inside the church and say, well, wait a minute, in society there are issues that we need to fix as Catholics, but also in our own church. So I think a lot of those people have helped me to see that. And I always think about Martin Luther King and that quote, a threat to justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, or an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. For me, that makes me connect everything, like anything wrong that's going on in society, we should fight it. But also in our church, it doesn't matter if it's a bishop, the pope. I think, we're all sinners and we all make mistakes. So I think it's okay to be able to criticize, whatever is wrong in ourselves, whatever is wrong in society and whatever is wrong in our church.
Yeah, can you talk about maybe the distinctly Ignatian elements of that self-reflection and how that self-reflection drives you to particular forms of action?
Yeah, for sure. I think Ignatius, himself was always very aware. I think there's a story, I don't remember, but when they first wanted to elect the first superior of the Jesuits, he himself, tried everything to not be elected the first superior. I think he wanted to become a missionary, go abroad. He did not want to be in Rome. He did not. So I think, his spirituality has a lot to do with that, with self, reflection and looking at yourself and looking at, and in front of God, knowing that you're not perfect, and we are sinners, and so I think, even though I'm not officially a Jesuit anymore, I think a lot of that spirituality of Ignatius is still with me, of looking at the world and looking at the church and looking at yourself, looking at the positive, but also looking at the negative, and where God calls us to change and to grow. Because Ignatius himself was a reformer, I feel.
So some of the work that you've done looking at the world and looking at the church has also looked at the intersections of injustice. Can you talk a little bit about the sanctuary work that you're doing in New York City and how that's drawn you into maybe conflict or conversation with the archdiocese there?
Yes. For example, in New York, we have many people who have taken sanctuary, and around the country. And many of those people are Catholic, actually, and they're mostly in sanctuary and Protestant churches.
Can you talk a little bit about what it means for someone to take sanctuary in a church?
Sure. Well, as many people know, all this has been going on with immigration, in this country. During Obama, it wasn't easy for immigrants, but now with Mr. Trump as the president, things have gotten even a little bit more out of control. So many immigrants are facing have been facing deportation. They are, and many as a last dance, something that they do with help of churches is to seek physical sanctuary inside churches, and this is just it's not easy. It's no one wants to do this. The churches or the person, it's not something that's no one wants to live in a church. It's not easy. But it is a last resort for people to give time, so lawyers can keep fighting their case with the community, with churches, and waiting until the government can give many of these immigrants a pardon. And so there are many people here in the U.S. right now that have been in sanctuary for a year or two, and they live there in the church, and the community helps them, and many other churches also give them support, and lawyers. And the whole community is behind these people.